The mysterious encounter. Alex's head throbbed as he slowly opened his eyes. The air around him felt heavy, filled with a strange, rhythmic humming that vibrated in his chest. He blinked, trying to adjust to the dim, blue-tinted light of the room. This was not the engineering deck of his ship, and it certainly wasn't Earth. His heart raced as he sat up. The surface beneath him was smooth and cool, like polished metal. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, shifting and changing as though they were alive. He reached for his head, feeling a dull ache. That's when he noticed it, a strange, glowing device strapped to his wrist. "What is this?" he muttered, tugging at it. It wouldn't budge. Before he could inspect it further, the faint hum shifted, and the door to the room slid open with a soft hiss. Alex froze. A tall figure stepped in, her silhouette outlined by a soft, silvery light. The alien woman was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the dim light of the room. Her eyes, a vibrant green, glowed softly, and her hair floated around her head as if weightless. She was slender but moved with a strange, fluid grace that made Alex feel like a clumsy child in comparison. She stopped a few feet from him, tilting her head as if studying him. Her lips moved, and a series of melodic sounds filled the air. It wasn't human language, but Alex could somehow understand the tone. She wasn't threatening him. Not yet. He stayed silent, watching her carefully. Her gaze softened, and she crouched slightly to meet his eye level. "Shivora, Talma," she said, her voice gentle and almost musical. Alex didn't respond. He knew better than to reveal that he understood her words. The alien woman seemed to think he was just another clueless human. And for now, that was an advantage he intended to keep. The woman reached into a compartment on her sleek, form-fitting suit and pulled out a small, glowing orb. With a flick of her wrist, it expanded into a flat screen displaying stars and planets. She pointed at one of the planets, then at him. Her voice softened as she spoke again, her tone almost affectionate. "You are safe now, human," she said, though Alex doubted she thought he could understand. "You are my home now." Her words sent a chill down his spine. What did she mean by home? And why was she speaking as if he belonged to her? Alex's mind raced. He needed to figure out where he was and what she wanted. The last thing he remembered was his ship being struck by something. A meteor storm, perhaps. He was supposed to be on a supply run to a neighboring colony, but now he was here, in a place that felt more like a dream than reality. The alien woman stepped closer, holding out her hand as if to comfort him. Her green eyes glowed brighter, and Alex noticed a faint smile on her lips. There was something unsettling about her kindness, like it wasn't entirely her choice. Alex forced himself to stay calm. He gave a small nod, pretending to be compliant, and the woman seemed satisfied. She gestured for him to follow her, turning toward the door. As she walked ahead, Alex couldn't help but notice the way the walls of the corridor shifted and pulsed, as though the ship itself were alive. The lights dimmed and brightened in response to their movements, creating an almost hypnotic effect. The woman led him to a large, circular room with a transparent dome ceiling. Beyond it, stars stretched endlessly, twinkling in vibrant colors he had never seen before. For a moment, the beauty of it all took his breath away. The alien woman looked at him again, her expression unreadable. She raised her hand, and the device on Alex's wrist began to glow. He flinched, but nothing happened, yet. "Shivora Talna," she repeated, her voice softer this time, almost pleading. She didn't realize Alex understood her words. "You will be fine." But Alex wasn't so sure. As the woman turned away, Alex's gaze shifted to the far side of the room. A large, sealed door hummed faintly, its edges glowing with an eerie red light. Something about it felt wrong. He couldn't see what was behind it, but he thought he heard a faint guttural growl coming from the other side. His stomach tightened. He had to find out what was going on. But for now, he had to play along. The alien woman believed he was ignorant, and that was his only advantage. As she walked away, Alex took a deep breath and forced himself to relax. Whatever was happening here, he wasn't going to let it break him. He clenched his fists, his mind racing with questions. Why am I here? What does she mean by home? And what's behind that door? For now, the answers would have to wait, but one thing was clear: he wasn't safe. Not yet. A captive or a guest? Alex sat in the strange metallic chair, his mind racing. The alien woman, Tavera, as he had begun to call her in his head, hovered nearby, her movements calm and deliberate. She watched him as though he were some rare, delicate artifact, her glowing green eyes betraying a flicker of curiosity. She placed a bowl of shimmering blue liquid in front of him. It smelled faintly sweet, like honey mixed with flowers. Alex hesitated, staring at the bowl, unsure if it was safe. Tavera tilted her head, her expression softening as she gestured toward the bowl. "Drink," she said in her melodic, alien tongue. Alex kept his face blank, pretending not to understand. The last thing he wanted was for her to know he could follow her words. For now, ignorance was his shield. Tavera sighed and pressed a few glowing symbols on the wall. A small hologram flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a star map. She gestured to it, speaking softly in her alien language. Alex's eyes followed her movements, noting the way her fingers paused over a particular system. It looked familiar. Was it Earth's solar system? He clenched his fists under the table. If she knew where Earth was, what was her plan? Tavera seemed to sense his tension. She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "You are safe here, human. No harm will come to you." Safe. That word hung in Alex's mind, feeling more like a cage than a promise. After what felt like hours, Tavera finally left the room, the door sealing shut behind her. Alex waited a few moments to ensure she wasn't coming back before he stood, his eyes scanning the strange symbols and machinery around him. The ship was eerily quiet, save for the low hum that seemed to come from its walls. He approached the door, examining its smooth surface. There was no visible handle, only a faintly glowing panel that pulsed softly. He touched it, and the panel responded with a quiet beep, but the door remained closed, locked. Alex turned his attention to the rest of the room. Along one wall was a series of cabinets, their translucent doors revealing rows of alien tools and gadgets. He opened one cautiously, pulling out a small disc-shaped device. "What are you?" he whispered, turning it over in his hands. Before he could investigate further, a faint sound caught his attention. It was coming from the other side of the room, a low, guttural growl, almost too quiet to hear. His pulse quickened. He turned toward the source of the sound, his eyes narrowing at a large, sealed door at the far end of the room. Unlike the other doors, this one was reinforced, with thick metal bars crisscrossing its surface. A red light pulsed faintly along its edges, accompanied by the faint growling sound. Alex stepped closer, his heart pounding. The growls grew louder, and now he could hear something else: muffled voices, human voices. He froze, straining to listen. The words were faint, but they were definitely in English. "Help. Anyone. Please." Alex's stomach dropped. Other humans were here. Before he could react, the door to the room hissed open, and Tavera stepped in. Alex quickly turned away from the sealed door, pretending to examine one of the alien tools. Tavera's eyes narrowed slightly as she approached him. She glanced at the tool in his hands, and then at the locked door, her expression unreadable. "You are curious," she said, her voice calm but firm. Alex shrugged, feigning ignorance. He gestured vaguely at the tool, and then at the room around them, trying to play the part of the clueless human. Tavera watched him for a moment longer before stepping past him. She placed her hand on the locked door, and the red light brightened. The growling stopped immediately, replaced by an eerie silence. You do not need to concern yourself with what lies beyond this door, she said, her tone colder now. It is not safe. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Not safe for who? The rest of the day passed in tense silence. Tivera busied herself with various tasks, occasionally glancing at Alex as if to ensure he wasn't getting into trouble. Alex, meanwhile, did his best to observe her without drawing attention to himself. He noticed how she moved with precision, every step deliberate, every action purposeful. She seemed lonely, he realized. For all her grace and power, there was a sadness in her eyes, as though she carried a weight he couldn't yet understand. That night, or what he assumed was night, Tivera left again, muttering something about the hunt. Alex waited until he was certain she was gone before approaching the locked door once more. This time, he noticed something he hadn't before, a faint crack in the wall near the door, just wide enough to peer through. He crouched down, his heart racing, and pressed his eye to the crack. What he saw made his blood run cold. There were humans on the other side, their faces pale and frightened. They were locked in small, transparent pods, wires running from their heads to a large, glowing machine. The growling sound was coming from a hulking creature in the corner, its body covered in jagged scales. Alex's mind raced. Who were these people? What was Tivera doing to them? Before he could think further, a loud beep echoed through the room. The door behind him hissed open, and he spun around to see Tivera standing there, her green eyes glowing brighter than ever. "You should not be here," she said, her voice sharp. For the first time, Alex saw anger in her expression, and something else. Fear. Uneasy alliance. The silence between Alex and Tivera was heavy. She stood in the doorway, her glowing green eyes fixed on him, her expression unreadable. Alex tried to think of an excuse, something to explain why he was crouched near the sealed door, but his mind was blank. "You are not as ignorant as you appear," Tivera finally said, her voice steady but with an edge of tension. Alex straightened, deciding to drop the act. "Maybe I'm not," he said. Tivera's eyes widened slightly at his words, and her glowing pupils flickered like a short-circuiting light. She tilted her head, her expression shifting from surprise to curiosity. "You understand me," she said, almost to herself. Her voice was softer now, less accusatory. Alex nodded, crossing his arms. "Yeah, I've understood you this whole time. Now it's your turn to explain. Who are those people behind the door? And what are you doing to them?" For a moment, Tivera didn't answer. She stepped closer, her movements slow and deliberate. Alex tensed, ready to defend himself if needed, but she didn't seem hostile. Instead, she stopped a few feet away, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You are different," she said finally. "Most humans are. Chaotic. Loud. But you listen. You observe." Alex narrowed his eyes. "That doesn't answer my question." Tivera sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. It was the first time Alex had seen her look vulnerable. "The humans behind that door are dangerous," she said. "They were taken because they posed a threat to the stability of our systems." "Stability," Alex repeated, his voice rising. "They're locked in pods, connected to some kind of machine. What kind of stability is that?" Tivera's eyes flickered again, and she stepped back, her expression growing colder. "You do not understand our ways. Your kind acts without thinking, without considering the consequences. We are correcting that. By imprisoning them." Alex snapped. "By turning them into what?" "Experiments." Tivera's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked past Alex, her silver hair trailing behind her like a ghostly veil. She placed her hand on the sealed door, and the red light brightened in response. "These humans were not captured without reason," she said. "They attacked one of our colonies. Dozens of my people died because of their recklessness. This is not punishment. It is containment." Alex stared at her, his mind racing. And what about me? Why did you take me? Tavera hesitated, her fingers brushing the edge of the glowing door. You were different, she said quietly. When I found you, your ship was destroyed. You were the only survivor. I brought you here because... She trailed off, her voice faltering. Because what? Alex pressed, taking a step closer. Tavera turned to face him, her green eyes locking onto his. For the first time, Alex saw something he hadn't expected: guilt. Because I thought you could help me, she said. Help me prove that humans are more than chaos. Alex stared at her, trying to process her words. Help you? How? Tavera didn't answer right away. Instead, she gestured for him to follow her. Reluctantly, he did, his mind buzzing with questions. She led him through the ship, the glowing walls shifting and pulsing as they walked. They entered another room, this one filled with holographic displays and strange, floating machines. In the center of the room was a large, spherical device that hummed softly. This, Tavera said, gesturing to the device, is the heart of guidance. It is what keeps our systems stable and ensures the safety of our people. Alex frowned. And what does that have to do with me? Tavera stepped closer to the device, her fingers brushing its surface. The heart is powered by understanding, she said. It learns from the minds of those it connects to. But it has never connected to a human before. I believe it could learn from you, that you could help us understand your kind. Alex took a step back, his instincts screaming at him to get as far away from the machine as possible. You want to plug me into that thing? No way. It will not harm you, Tavera said quickly, her voice almost pleading. It will only observe, learn. If we can understand you, we can prevent more conflict between our species. And if I say no? Alex asked, his voice hard. Tavera hesitated, her expression clouded. Then you will remain here, she said. I will not force you, but I cannot let you leave until I am certain you are not a threat to my people. Alex clenched his fists. He didn't trust her, but he also didn't see another way out. If this machine could really help bridge the gap between humans and her species, maybe it was worth the risk. But something about her words didn't sit right with him. Why was she so desperate? And why did she seem so conflicted? I'll think about it, he said finally. Tavera nodded, her expression unreadable. That is all I ask. As she turned to leave, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't telling him everything. There was more to this heart of guidance than she was letting on, and he intended to find out what it was before it was too late. The truth revealed. Alex stared at the glowing sphere of the heart of guidance long after Tavera left the room. Its hum resonated in his chest, unnervingly alive. The idea of plugging himself into the machine was absurd, dangerous even, but curiosity gnawed at him. What was this device truly capable of? And why did Tavera seem so desperate for him to interact with it? Determined to find answers, Alex waited until the ship's dim lights shifted, signaling the night cycle. The corridors fell silent except for the constant hum of the ship. He moved cautiously, retracing his steps to the sealed door where he had seen the imprisoned humans. The red glow of the door was still as menacing as before, but now Alex knew how to access the alien systems. He pressed his wrist device against a nearby panel, and the symbols rearranged themselves, pulsing as if recognizing his presence. With a faint hiss, the door slid open. The room beyond was darker than he expected, lit only by the faint glow of the pods. The humans inside were still there, their faces pale and their bodies motionless, as if in deep sleep. Wires snaked from the pods into the large machine at the center of the room, a smaller, more sinister version of the heart of guidance. Alex approached the nearest pod, his hands trembling. A young man was inside, his chest rising and falling slowly. The wires attached to his head pulsed with light, as though they were extracting something from him. "Hey," Alex whispered, tapping on the glass. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyelids fluttered, and for a brief moment, his eyes opened. "Help. Me?" he rasped before slumping back into unconsciousness. Alex's stomach churned. Whatever this machine was doing, it wasn't just observing or learning. It was draining them. As Alex tried to figure out how to disable the machine, the faint sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. His heart leaped into his throat. Tivera was coming. He ducked behind one of the pods just as the door slid open. Tivera entered, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She approached the central machine, placing her hand on its surface. The pulsing light intensified, and the humans in the pods twitched slightly. "You must not resist," Tigara murmured, almost to herself. "This is for the greater good." Alex's blood boiled. He stepped out from his hiding place, his voice sharp. "The greater good. You're draining them." Tivera spun around, her glowing eyes widening in shock. "Alex," she said, her tone laced with both anger and sadness, "you should not be here." "Why?" he snapped. "So I don't see what you're really doing. You're not trying to understand us. You're stealing something from these people. Their memories, their thoughts. What is this machine doing to them?" Tivera hesitated, her expression conflicted. "You do not understand," she said quietly. "These humans attacked my people. They are dangerous. This machine ensures they cannot harm anyone else. It pacifies them." "Pacifies them," Alex repeated, his voice rising. "You're taking away their free will." Tivera flinched, as though his words had struck her. "They left us no choice," she said, her voice trembling. "Your kind is unpredictable, violent. If we cannot control that chaos, more lives will be lost, yours and ours." Alex shook his head, his anger bubbling over. "You think this is the answer? Turning people into shells. That's not peace, Tivera. That's slavery." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was filled only with the soft hum of the machine and the faint breathing of the imprisoned humans. Finally, Tivera lowered her gaze. "You do not see what I see," she said softly. "I was there when your kind destroyed one of our colonies. I saw my people, my family, die because of your recklessness. This is the only way to protect both of our species." Alex took a step closer, his voice steady but firm. "There's another way, Tivera. You don't have to do this. Let them go, and we can work together to find a real solution." Tivera looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with an emotion Alex couldn't quite place. "Hope. Fear. I cannot," she said finally. "The Council would never allow it. They already distrust me for bringing you here. If I defy them, I risk everything." "Then take the risk," Alex urged. "You said you believe in me, that I'm different. Prove it. Trust me." The room fell silent again, and Alex could see the internal struggle playing out on Tivera's face. Finally, she closed her eyes and placed her hand on the machine. The lights dimmed, and the pods hissed as they began to open. The humans inside stirred, their eyes fluttering open as they slowly regained consciousness. "I hope you are right, Alex," Tivera said quietly. "Because if you are wrong, we may have doomed us all." As the last pod opened, Alex helped a young woman out, her legs shaky from being confined. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "What now?" she whispered. Alex glanced at Tivera, who stood silently by the machine, her expression unreadable. "Now," Alex said, "we figure out how to survive." But as he led the humans out of the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. Tivera had taken a risk by freeing them, but would her people, and the Council, allow it? And what price would she have to pay for her defiance? A bond tested. The ship's corridors felt colder as Alex led the newly freed humans through them, their footsteps eerily quiet against the metallic floor. Each face told a story of exhaustion and fear. The group moved cautiously, every creak of the alien vessel making them flinch. Behind them, Tivera followed in silence, her glowing green eyes scanning their surroundings. She looked less like their captor now and more like someone trapped between two impossible choices. "You sure she's not going to turn on us?" a man whispered to Alex. His voice was laced with doubt, his grip tight on a broken pipe he'd picked up as a makeshift weapon. "She's on our side," Alex replied, though his voice lacked confidence. The man snorted. "She's the one who locked us up in the first place." Alex glanced back at Tivera. She walked with her usual grace, but her shoulders were tense. He could sense her unease, though she said nothing. He couldn't blame the others for distrusting her. They had every reason to. Still, she had taken a risk to free them, and Alex believed there was more to her story than she let on. "Keep moving," Alex urged. "We'll figure out the rest once we're off this ship." The group reached an observation chamber with a panoramic view of the stars. The sight was breathtaking, a reminder of just how far they were from Earth. But the awe was short-lived as the ship shuddered beneath their feet. "What was that?" a woman asked, panic creeping into her voice. Tivera stepped forward, her expression grim. "The Council's ship has arrived," she said. Alex's stomach dropped. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," Tivera replied. "They will not negotiate. They will see you as a threat and destroy you." Murmurs of fear rippled through the group, and Alex felt the weight of their lives pressing on his shoulders. He turned to Tivera. "What about your people? Won't they listen to you?" Tivera hesitated, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "I have already defied them by freeing you. They will see it as betrayal." "Great," the man with the pipe muttered. "So we're all dead." "Not yet," Alex said firmly. He turned back to Tivera. "Is there any way off this ship? An escape pod? A shuttle? Anything?" Tivera's gaze flicked to a display on the wall. "There is a small vessel in the docking bay, but it will not escape unnoticed. The Council's ship will intercept it before you can reach safety. Then we'll need a distraction," Alex said, his mind racing. Tivera looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You are asking me to betray my people further." "I'm asking you to do the right thing," Alex shot back. "You said you wanted to prove that humans are more than chaos. Help us show them that." For a long moment, Tivera said nothing. The hum of the ship and the distant rumble of approaching danger filled the silence. Finally, she nodded. "I will lead them away," she said. "But if I do this, I cannot return to my people. I will be hunted as a traitor." Alex stepped closer, his voice softening. "Why are you doing this, Tivera? Why risk everything for us?" Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time, Alex saw raw emotion in her expression. "Because I have seen enough death," she said quietly. "And because you remind me that there is hope, even in chaos." The plan came together quickly. Tivera would use the heart of guidance to emit a powerful energy signal, drawing the Council ship's attention away from the docking bay. Meanwhile, Alex and the others would make their way to the escape vessel. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked as they stood near the control console. Tivera nodded. "I will buy you as much time as I can." Alex hesitated, then reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said. Tivera's lips curved into a faint smile. "Survive, Alex. That is thanks enough." As the group made their way to the docking bay, the ship shuddered again, more violently this time. The Council ship was close now, its presence oppressive. "Faster," Alex urged, helping one of the weaker humans keep up. Behind them, the lights flickered, and a distant alarm began to blare. The heart of guidance was working, emitting a massive energy pulse that disrupted the Council ship's systems. "Almost there," Alex called out as the docking bay doors came into view. The small vessel inside was sleek and compact, its surface shimmering like liquid silver. It was a tight fit, but it would do. As the humans boarded, Alex lingered at the entrance, his eyes scanning the corridor. He didn't want to leave Tivera behind, but he knew she wouldn't come. "Alex, let's go," Someone shouted from inside the vessel. He clenched his fists, torn between staying and leaving. But before he could decide, the ship rocked violently, throwing him against the wall. "The Council ship," someone yelled. "They're firing on us." Alex scrambled into the pilot's seat, his hand shaking as he powered up the vessel. The controls were unfamiliar, but he managed to get it moving. As the escape ship lifted off, Alex caught a glimpse of Tivera through the observation window. She stood alone in the heart of guidance chamber, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever as she manipulated the machine. "Goodbye, Tivera," Alex whispered. The escape vessel shot into the void of space, its engines roaring. Behind them, the alien ship exploded in a blinding burst of light, Tivera's final act of defiance buying them the time they needed. Inside the escape vessel, the humans sat in silence, their faces a mix of relief and sorrow. "Do you think she made it?" the young woman from the pod asked. Alex stared out the window, watching the stars blur past. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I hope so." As the ship carried them further from danger, Alex made a silent promise to himself. If they survived, he would find a way to honor Tivera's sacrifice. She had risked everything to save them, and he wouldn't let her memory fade into the void. For now, survival was enough, but he knew the fight was far from over. The final choice. The escape vessel was quiet, the hum of its engines the only sound as it hurtled through the void. Alex sat at the controls, his eyes fixed on the endless expanse of stars ahead. Behind him, the other humans were huddled together, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and uncertainty. "We're not out of this yet," Alex said, breaking the silence. The young woman who had spoken earlier, Sarah, as she had introduced herself, stepped forward. "What happens now? We don't know where we are, and we don't have enough supplies to last long." Alex glanced at the navigation display. The alien symbols meant nothing to him, but he could see a faint blinking marker that Tivera must have programmed into the ship. "She left us a heading," he said. "It's a start." The man with the pipe, Brian, scoffed. "And where does that lead? Another alien trap. For all we know, this could be part of their plan." Alex spun around in his seat, his frustration bubbling over. "She saved our lives, Brian. If it weren't for Tivera, we'd still be hooked up to that machine. Or worse." "Yeah," Brian shot back. "And now she's dead because of us. What happens when her people come looking for revenge?" The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a shroud. Hours passed, and the tension in the ship grew heavier. Alex tried to focus on the controls, but his mind kept drifting back to Tivera. Was she truly gone? He had seen the explosion, but a part of him refused to believe it. "Alex," Sarah said softly, pulling him from his thoughts. "What's our plan? We can't just keep running." Alex sighed, leaning back in his seat. "We follow this heading, see where it leads. If it's a safe place, we regroup. If not, we figure it out." "And the Council?" Sarah asked. Alex's jaw tightened. "If they come, we fight." The blinking marker on the display grew brighter as they approached. Soon, a planet came into view, its surface a mix of lush green forests and shimmering blue oceans. It looked untouched, pristine, a stark contrast to the cold, metallic world of Tivera's ship. As they descended into the atmosphere, the ship's systems began to chirp with warnings. Alex frowned, his fingers flying over the controls. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "What now?" Brian asked, his tone sharp. Alex didn't answer. The ship trembled, its engines sputtering as it lost altitude. "Brace yourselves," he shouted, gripping the controls tightly. The escape vessel crashed into a dense forest, skidding across the ground before coming to a halt. Smoke billowed from the engines, and sparks danced along the walls of the cabin. "Is everyone okay?" Alex called out, coughing through the haze. A chorus of groans and murmurs answered him. Sarah helped an older man to his feet, while Brian checked the others. "We're alive," Sarah said, her voice shaky. That's something. The group emerged from the wreckage, their eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, and the distant sound of rushing water echoed through the trees. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. Brian, however, was less impressed. "Looks like the perfect place to get eaten alive." Alex ignored him, focusing instead on the ship's emergency beacon. He needed to ensure it wasn't transmitting their location if the Council was searching for them. The last thing they needed was a signal leading them straight here. As he disabled the beacon, a faint noise caught his attention. It was distant, almost imperceptible, but it sent a chill down his spine. "Did anyone hear that?" he asked, his voice low. The others fell silent, straining to listen. A moment later, the sound came again, a low, resonant hum, growing louder by the second. Sarah's eyes widened. "What is that?" Before Alex could answer, the sky above them darkened, and a massive shadow fell over the forest. A sleek alien ship descended, its engines emitting the same ominous hum Alex had heard earlier. "It's the Council," Brian said, his face pale. The group scattered, taking cover among the trees as the alien ship landed. Alex stayed close to Sarah, his heart pounding as he watched a squad of alien soldiers emerge. Their silver armor gleamed in the sunlight, and their movements were precise and coordinated. "They're searching for us," Alex whispered. "What do we do?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Alex's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Fighting wasn't an option, but surrendering wasn't either. "We need a distraction," he said, his voice firm. Before he could elaborate, a familiar voice crackled through his wrist device. "Alex." He froze, his breath catching in his throat. "Tivera." The voice came again, faint but unmistakable. "Do not move. I am coming." How Alex began, but the signal cut out. Minutes later, a smaller ship appeared, its sleek design unmistakable. It hovered above the Council soldiers, releasing a burst of light that temporarily blinded them. Alex watched in shock as Tivera emerged, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever. She moved with purpose, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. The Council soldiers hesitated, their weapons trained on her. "Tivera," one of them barked. "You are a traitor to your people." "I am a protector," she replied, her voice steady, "and I will not let you harm them." The tension was palpable as the soldiers exchanged glances. Finally, their leader stepped forward. "You are outnumbered. Surrender, and we will show mercy." Tivera's eyes met Alex's for a brief moment before she spoke. "Not today." She activated a device on her wrist, and a pulse of energy rippled outward, disabling the soldiers' weapons. Chaos erupted as the Council forces scrambled to recover. "Run," Tivera shouted to Alex and the others. As the group fled deeper into the forest, Alex glanced back to see Tivera holding her ground. She was buying them time, just as she had before. "Tivera," he called out, but she didn't look at him. "Go, Alex," she said, her voice firm. "This is my fight." Reluctantly, Alex turned and ran, vowing to himself that this wouldn't be the end. Tivera had saved them once again, but he wouldn't abandon her. Not this time. Home found in the stars. The forest stretched endlessly around Alex and the others as they ran, their footsteps crunching against the underbrush. The distant hum of the Council ship's engines faded, but the weight of what they had left behind lingered heavily on their minds. "Tivera's buying us time," Alex said, his voice strained. "We can't waste it. We have to find shelter." Brian, his makeshift pipe still in hand, slowed his pace. "Shelter? She's out there fighting for us, and we're running like cowards." "We don't have a choice," Alex shot back, turning to face him. "If we go back, we'll just get in her way. She wanted us to survive, so let's make that count." Brian grumbled but fell silent. The others followed Alex without question, their fear and exhaustion making them trust the only person who seemed to have a plan. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the forest, the group growing quieter with every step. The vibrant, alien world around them felt both beautiful and menacing. Strange plants glowed faintly in the dim light, their shapes unlike anything Alex had seen before. Creatures chirped and rustled in the distance, but none approached. Finally, they stumbled upon a clearing near a flowing river. The water shimmered with an iridescent glow, reflecting the starlight above. "This will do for now," Alex said, his voice heavy with fatigue. Sarah knelt by the river, cupping the water in her hands and sniffing it cautiously. "It seems clean," she said before taking a hesitant sip. The others followed suit, their spirits lifting slightly as they drank. Alex, however, couldn't relax. His thoughts were on Tivera, on the fight she was facing alone. Night fell, and the group built a small fire using dried branches they had collected. The warmth was a comfort, but the unease lingered. "Do you think she made it?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. Alex stared into the flames, his jaw tightening. "I don't know," he admitted, "but if anyone can, it's her." Brian shook his head, his expression grim. "You're putting too much faith in her. She's one of them. For all we know, this could still be a trap." "It's not," Alex said firmly. "She's risked everything for us. Twice. If that doesn't prove her loyalty, I don't know what does." Sarah glanced at Alex, her eyes filled with concern. "What if she doesn't come back?" Alex didn't answer. The thought had crossed his mind more times than he cared to admit. As the fire burned low, the forest grew eerily quiet. Alex stood and moved to the edge of the clearing, his eyes scanning the dark horizon. "Keeping watch?" Sarah asked, approaching him. "Something like that," Alex replied. She stood beside him, her arms crossed. "You care about her, don't you?" Alex hesitated, then nodded. "She's more than just an alien. She's different. She sees us for what we could be, not just what we are. And she's willing to fight for that." Sarah smiled faintly. "Sounds like you're describing yourself." Alex chuckled, but the sound was hollow. "Maybe. Or maybe I just don't want to admit that I owe her my life." The silence was broken by a faint hum in the distance. Alex's heart leaped as he turned toward the sound. A small, sleek ship emerged from the darkness, its silver surface glinting in the firelight. "It's her," Alex said, relief flooding his voice. The group gathered as the ship landed, its engines hissing softly. The door slid open, and Tivera stepped out, her silver skin glowing faintly under the starlight. She looked exhausted but unharmed. "You're alive," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tivera's green eyes met his, and for the first time she smiled. "I told you I would protect you." The reunion was brief. Tivera explained that she had disabled the Council soldiers and destroyed their ship's ability to track them. However, it wouldn't be long before others came searching. "This planet is off their charts," she said. "For now, you are safe, but you cannot stay here forever." "What about you?" Alex asked. Tivera hesitated. "I cannot return to my people. To them, I am a traitor. My only purpose now is to ensure your survival." Sarah stepped forward. "Then stay with us. We need you." Tivera's gaze softened. "Your survival is my priority, but your journey is yours to lead. I will guide you, but I cannot take the path for you." Alex frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," Tivera said, "that I will help you build a new home, here or somewhere else, but you must decide what kind of life you want to create." In the days that followed, Tivera helped the group establish a more permanent camp. She shared her knowledge of the planet's flora and fauna, teaching them which plants were safe to eat and which creatures to avoid. Slowly, the group began to adapt, their fear giving way to determination. For Alex, the bond between him and Tivera deepened. She was more than an ally. She was a symbol of what could be achieved when trust replaced fear. One night, as they stood beneath the stars, Alex turned to her. You said I reminded you of hope. Why? Tivera looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with an emotion Alex couldn't quite place. Because you fight for more than yourself, she said. You fight for the future, for your people. And that is what gives me hope. As the weeks turned into months, the group thrived under Tivera's guidance. They built shelters, cultivated food, and forged a community. The fear of the council's return lingered, but it no longer defined them. One night, as Alex gazed at the stars, he heard Tivera's voice beside him. Do you miss your home? She asked. Alex shook his head. This is my home now. Because of you. Tivera's lips curved into a faint smile. And you are mine, Alex. Humanity is my home now. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if bearing witness to their bond. Together, they had found something worth fighting for. A new beginning, a shared purpose. And in the vast, endless expanse of the universe, that was enough.